You're watching the legal breakdown. So, Glenn, we have news here that Hunter Biden had accepted a plea deal after this investigation has been completed. Can you give a quick overview of the charges that he was facing and also this plea deal that he accepted?
Yeah, after many years of being investigated, Hunter Biden reportedly is pleading guilty to two misdemeanor crimes for failing to timely file his tax returns in 2017 and 2018. Not exactly the crimes of the century. There is a third crime involved where Hunter Biden apparently lied on a form he filled out to purchase a firearm some years ago. And that charge will be dismissed as what's called prosecutorial diversion, which means he'll be on probation for 2 years for these two misdemeanor failure to file crimes. And if he keeps his nose clean for 2 years, doesn't get in any trouble, and successfully completes probation, that false report that he filed in connection with the purchase of a firearm will basically be tossed out. It will be null and void, and he will be stuck with two misdemeanor convictions on his record.
Okay, so for an analogous charge, if it was for somebody whose last name wasn't Biden, what would the punishment here be?
The punishment for regular folk, if they failed to file their tax returns for a couple of years, would be the IRS contacting them saying, hey, file your back tax returns, pay what you owe, pay penalties, pay interest, and we'll call it a day. Brian, when I look at this resolution, it looks to me like there is something for everyone to dislike. Why do I say that? Well, we're already hearing, the screeches and cries from the extreme right, from the Republicans saying two misdemeanors. Oh my God, the fix was in. This was a sweetheart deal orchestrated by Hunter Biden's father, the president of the United States, and it's outrageous. Well, let's pay attention to the facts. This case was investigated by a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, start to finish. They've been investigating Hunter Biden for about 5 years, and it was a Republican Trump-appointed U.S. attorney in Delaware, a guy named David Weiss, who has been investigating it all along and is still overseeing the investigation. And this is why, frankly, I think what Joe Biden did is so impressive and so honorable and so sort of imbued with integrity. When he came in as president, ordinarily what happens is a president will ask all U.S. attorneys to submit their resignation, and then the president will appoint all the U.S. attorneys of their choice in the various federal jurisdictions. But because his son was being investigated by the Delaware U.S. attorney, Joe Biden said, I'm not going to interfere or appear to interfere in that ongoing investigation of my son, and I will not ask that Trump-appointed U.S. attorney for his resignation. I want him to complete the investigation of my son's suspected crimes. What an honorable thing for a president and a parent to do. That's what Joe Biden did. And as a result, I think people would be hard-pressed to say the fix was in, and this was the Biden Merrick Garland Department of Justice doing a favor for Hunter Biden. Nonsense. This was a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney who handled this matter from start to finish. This is the resolution that U.S. attorney believed was the appropriate one after all of those years of investigating Hunter Biden, two misdemeanor failures to file tax returns in a timely manner, and lying on a form to purchase a firearm. That's what they came up with. That's what Hunter Biden is stepping up and manning up and taking responsibility for. And for anybody who cares to pay attention to facts and reality, that should lay this to rest. Now, let me talk about why people might dislike this on the other side, on the left, the Democrats. And it's because of what we were just discussing. If Hunter Biden's last name wasn't Biden, I don't believe he would have been prosecuted. He probably wouldn't even have been criminally investigated, because people fail to file their tax returns in a timely manner all the time, and it gets resolved administratively. But I think because nobody wanted to be accused of favoritism, the decision was made that Hunter Biden would be prosecuted for crimes that other regular folk are generally not prosecuted for.
You know, the irony of all of this is that Republicans obviously want a crime like this now, suddenly, as of today, because Hunter Biden was found, will plead guilty to it. They want these tax crimes to be charged to the fullest extent of the law. And yet, at the same time, they're pushing for the defunding of the IRS that would actually allow them to prosecute this kind of stuff. Isn't is that not lost on them, do you think?
I think it is lost on them that we're so glad Hunter Biden is prosecuted for these tax crimes, and we're going to get rid of IRS agents to make sure nobody else is. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Just so that we have this here for posterity, like you said, a lot on the right are basically accusing Joe Biden of putting the fix in here. What participation did Joe Biden have in any of this?
Well, based on facts and reality and all available reporting and the way this case was resolved, Joe Biden had zero influence or involvement in any of it. Indeed, he did the stand-up thing, I'm going to say it again, by letting a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney run with this investigative ball, for the entire process. And this is what that U.S. attorney came up with. No involvement of Joe Biden and some relatively minor offenses by his son, Hunter.
Yeah. And the irony of this as well is that if the tables were turned, for all these Republicans clutching their pearls now, if the tables were turned, the likelihood that Trump would leave in place a U.S. attorney that was investigating his own son or anybody in his family, or that wasn't even deemed favorable enough to the Trump family, is close to nothing. I mean, with James Comey, he didn't view that as being favorable enough to him, and he fired him. So, this idea that if the tables were turned, Trump would have taken the high road or done what's right here, just like Joe Biden did, is just kind of asinine on its face.
It is, and together, Bill Barr, Trump's corrupt attorney general, and Donald Trump himself were firing U.S. attorneys who wouldn't do their corrupt bidding, like Jesse Liu, the U.S. attorney at the District of Columbia U.S. Attorney's Office. Trump and Barr desperately wanted her to bring charges against the acting director of the FBI, Andy McCabe. But the problem was there was no evidence he'd committed any crimes. Jesse Liu, who, full disclosure, I worked with both as a line attorney when I was a federal prosecutor, and she was my U.S. attorney at the time I retired from the Department of Justice. She wouldn't bring charges. Why? Because the evidence didn't support charges. So they found a really cute way to dislodge her from her position. They promised her a position, I think, in Treasury. They pushed her out as U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, and then they yanked back the job offer for the Treasury position, forcing her out of government. That's some pretty despicable weaponization of the Department of Justice and the Oval Office.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Jim Jordan will be right on top of that with his weaponization of the Federal Government Committee. I'm sure that's right there next on his docket. So with that said, Glenn, thanks for covering all this stuff. I know that it's a little bit nebulous, and obviously with someone like Hunter Biden, all of this stuff is immediately covered up in just partisan bullshit. So it's easy to to have the facts kind of be obfuscated here. So thanks for getting those facts straight here. And for anybody watching who wants to stay on top of legal news, make sure to subscribe. The links are right here on the screen. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.